It's October 1st here in Minneapolis, and it is a scheduled high of 87 degrees, which is really hot for this time of year. So hot they actually canceled the Twin Cities Marathon at 5 a.m. this morning, so I feel pretty bad for all those runners out there. But there's a lot of talk online. I have a lot of backyard chicken farming and farming groups I'm a part of on social media, and a lot of people are starting to ask, how do you winterize your chicken coop? And I know it's probably the last thing on your mind when it's 87 degrees, but it is October. And if you're in the Midwest, especially Minnesota, things go downhill pretty quickly. There's a big difference between the 1st of October and the 31st of October. We're going from highs 87, and you can, by the end of the month, you got highs maybe in the 30s or 20s even. You never really know what you're gonna get. For those of you who aren't familiar with my channel, I have 3 girls. I live in a suburb of Minneapolis, and I am permitted to have up to 4. We lost 1 chicken over the summer due to illness, and we are down to 3. And those are Pot Pie, my chicken noodle, and my goofy chicken parmesan. And we've had them for 2 years now. We've been pretty lucky. We really haven't had a whole lot of illness or injury with any of the girls. Anything that they have has been pretty short-lived. My chicken noodle actually has some cross beak going on right now. She busted up her beak over the summer. We're not sure why, but she seems to be eating and drinking just fine. So we're entering our 3rd winter with the girls, and here's what we typically do. So here's my chicken's coop. And for those of you who are thinking about getting chickens or don't know a whole lot about chickens, this is pretty much just used for sleeping at night and laying eggs. So I don't need to have a big one because I only have 3 girls, but inside they have their little roosting bar where they sleep at night. Oh, look, I'm so sorry, Potty. That's Pot Pie. She's trying to lay an egg and I'm busting in on her. Sorry, girl. They don't like to use these nesting boxes. They love this corner to lay eggs. So basically this is just for privacy. I'm gonna let her do her thing in there. But we don't do a whole lot when it comes to heating the coop, and here's why. We stay away from heating bulbs, just our personal preference. I have read from people on social media groups that heat bulbs can start fires where it will literally set the coop on fire and take the chickens down with it. And I just don't want that to happen in my backyard. We install a heating plate that we got from Tractor Supply. And basically it's like a heating plate / brooder. But we mount it inside of the wall of the coop. And if you touch it, it's almost like hot to the point like you'd want to take your hand off. It's not that hot, but it is a little bit ouchy hot. And what that ends up doing is heating the interior of this coop about 10 degrees over air temperature. We also have a vent down here that we might cover part of it with plastic, but we leave it open because we want the ventilation, because you don't want any kind of moisture to build up inside. Any kind of moisture you'd be getting would be from their waste. And you don't want that to build up and cause frostbite and things like that. As for the floor inside the coop, we just put a whole bunch of straw down, and we really don't remove it in the winter. As the animal waste kind of gets compacted, we just typically add boar, and that seems to be enough of an insulator to keep them warm inside that coop during the winter months. So yeah, we've had 2 cold winters where temperatures will get down to -20 overnight, something dangerously cold like that. The chickens actually do pretty well. Remember, they are farm animals. They are meant to be outside 365. So there was our first winter where we were rookies and we felt bad, and we brought them into our garage, and it was just a disaster. They got bored. They got into everything. They pooped everywhere. I'm still finding turds. Last winter we decided that, you know what, no, we're not going to repeat that mistake. They stayed out in their coop. They huddled together for warmth. They're pretty bored, but they lived through it just fine. Got a little bit of minor frostbite on their combs, and that healed and it went away. As for their run, we use a grating, and we actually do have it buried 2 feet below the surface and 2 feet out for anything that tunnels. And what we typically do to cut down on wind shear is we start wrapping a poly along this side, and we just use like a staple gun, and then we bring it along the back here. And we don't do the entire run in the poly just to get some fresh air in there. But the chickens like it because they hang out in this corner when it's really cold and windy, and they get a little break from the wind, and that helps them keep warm. One thing I haven't done in winters past that I might do is actually put like a litter box in here and fill it with some dust. The chickens, for the most part, have been okay without it these last 2 winters, but I don't want to push it. In the winter, they actually come up alongside of our house, and then they take dirt baths in the window wells, because these pretty much stay open dirt the whole year round. But in case, they get snowed in their coop and we can't let them out, it'd be good for them to have a backup area for them to take dust baths so they don't get mites or things like that over the winter. As for additional care for your chickens, we're talking about structural changes to winterize. The other things I do during the winter to keep them happy and healthy is I usually put down Timothy grass in the bottom of their run instead of straw to give them a little bit of organic nutrients during the winter. I always use straw in the coop to cut down on the moisture in there. Timothy grass has moisture in it. Straw is completely dead and dry. So that's why I always use that in the coop, no matter what season it is. But I will change the run out to Timothy grass in the winter. So I'll just change. I'll end up scooping all this out, and then I'll be putting fresh Timothy grass down as the winter progresses. I'm thinking about putting the litter box right in this area for them. I also make sure to give them a lot more dried larvae and mealworms, incorporating a lot more protein into their diet. Last winter, pot pie went through a molting stage, and when your chicken's molting, regardless of what the temperature is out there, they're using a lot of protein to grow those new feathers. You'll notice they stop laying eggs during this time because their body's trying to use all that protein to push all those new feathers out. So we really, really had to double down on the protein for Pot Pie last January, who picked the worst possible month to go naked, but she was able to be just fine. She didn't really leave the coop a whole lot for those few weeks. But I do have a video on that you guys should check out if you're interested. I'll link it at the end of the video here. There they are. It's super hot out. They're hanging out in the shade. This is like their favorite spot back here. So that's just what I do. Some of you may have more chickens. You may have more elaborate and larger coops than I do, and you may have to add more supplemental heat and other things. I'd be interested to know what everybody else does based on their environment, how many chickens they have, and where they live in the country. Obviously, if you're in a southern state, this probably isn't very big deal to you, but it can be in Minnesota. So be sure to comment, share what you do. Tips are always helpful for anybody who's reading. And I'm going to go back inside and watch the Vikings lose. So like, share, subscribe. Keep watching, guys.